Good morning, everybody. It's an emergency podcast week. Jimmy Butler trade edition. Dave DuFour, Baraheni, Zena Keita, Marcus Thompson. Marcus, you helped break the news. Jimmy Butler is now a Golden State Warrior. How the heck did this happen?
I guess if I could put it into one word, it would be desperation. Actually, let's go with thirst. I like thirst. Thirst is a very all-encompassing word. Two thirsty parties. Jimmy hunting for a contract extension. He ends up getting, I think, $110 million guaranteed after this year, which is not what he wanted, but, better than nothing. And the Warriors have been just absolutely desperate for somebody to put next to Steph. So much so, like, they didn't always want Jimmy. Like, Jimmy was not the apple of their eye. But sometimes, as Zena would never know, as you know, and I know you know, Dave, sometimes you just take whatever's left over in the club. You feel me?
That's not
you and your club references, man.
Listen, well, it's sort of like we talked about this the last time you were here, Marcus. They were maybe in on Cam Johnson. And of course, they were in on Paul George. They've been looking for this like wing type of guy who can create. You think about Jimmy Butler with these guys, they already kind of have shooting concerns. Like, I'm already thinking about the fit on the court, and it's not exactly the most seamless fit.
It's better than what they had. Like, if we just really just pull back and look at this, they were relying heavily on Dennis Schroeder and Buddy Hield. Like, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then they started 12-3 and it looked juicy, right? It looked good. But then at some point, it's Dennis Schroeder and Buddy Hield. Like, that's the reality. So, obviously, Jimmy's not a three-point shooter. But to me, where he fits is they just don't have dudes who can take two dribbles, get to a spot, and take a shot. They don't have that. They have it in Steph, but the other team is like, Steph, you're not shooting tonight, right? So, Jimmy, if he just lives in the mid-range, he gives them another layer of offense that they just desperately need. And plus, like, there's just something to be said about a star, man. Like, if you guard Steph like they guard Steph, where they basically treat the rest of the team like a 24-hour fitness rec squad, Jimmy will torch you. That's what they needed. They needed somebody to say, how dare you guard me like this?
Right.
I will embarrass your family. Jimmy might say that, right? Jimmy's the guy who's like, you better not do this to me. And they just haven't had that. So there are some issues, but there's just some fundamental things they lacked. And the best version of Jimmy definitely provides them.
Marcus, I'm wondering about the. Sorry, Zena.
Well, you can't cut off the black woman or black history month. Go ahead, Zena.
Yeah, you go ahead, Zena.
It's February. We in this building.
ISO.
My bad. But so my thing is, you said somebody that gets to the mid range. We've been seeing Andrew Wiggins improve his game and being able to do that, especially with the absence of Jonathan Kuminga. He absolutely has become that go-to guy that can get to the post in the mid post area, make a move, or get to a spot in the middle of the paint. But I do agree with you. Andrew Wiggins is not attract that star power level of attention on defense. But was there not an opportunity to work with Wiggins and move others on the team?
Nah, first off, the money doesn't work. Like, they had to get to, I think Jimmy was at $49 million. And any deal like that, it's got to be either Draymond or Wiggins. Like, those are the only two salaries.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a 6-for-1 deal ever in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? But the Warriors are in a tough spot because they can't do within 20%. They're so close. They're hard capped that they got about, maybe 500,000 left. You know what I'm saying? Which, for regular people like me, if I only have 500,000, I'll be good. But for them,
it's not bad.
For them, they got to get really close to 49 million. So it's just hard to do it without those salaries. So that's how you know they're desperate, because they did not want to trade Wiggins. And if you took a straw poll, which I did, about who would you rather have, Wiggins or Butler, it wasn't a landslide, right? A lot of people was like, man, let me keep Wiggins. But they're desperate. And if you just watch the Warriors and just watch Steph slowly deteriorating as he's exhausted trying to carry a whole team. They just got desperate and had to do something.
Okay, so desperate, thirst, right? These are the words we're kind of using to describe the Warriors. And I know there were reports.
Yeah, I like parched.
Yeah,
I like parched.
Water in the desert vibe, you know what I mean? If we're working about this kind of context for the Warriors and how they're approaching the situation, it was reported beforehand that like ultimately the chemistry was something that they were worried about in incorporating a guy like Jimmy Butler. Now that they have him, how do you think that is going to work with a guy like Draymond and Steph and Steve Kerr and the egos of all that kind of situation, you know?
I mean, it really all depends on Jimmy, you know, like that's really what it is. As I was told, Jimmy can be absolutely incredible teammate. Like he could just be the best guy you've ever met, but he can also be the Jimmy we see, you know, strutting, right? Like doing his thing, causing problems, trying to force his way. So it really just depends on Jimmy. If he comes in and he does his thing, you know, and he plays like the Jimmy who we saw drag Gabe Vincent and them to the finals, like he'll be great. Draymond don't really have beef with those type of guys. Like when those guys come in, I think Draymond is one of the people who like recognizes softness, and that's where he kind of has the issues. But if you like tough and you go back at him, Draymond will go at you, you go back at him, and he don't tend to have problems. He actually ends up being close with those guys. Like we thought DeMarcus Cousins was going to be a problem. They ended up best friends, right? Like that's just, that's how it is. So they're like, you know, they're kind of birds of a feather. I mean, Steph is always amenable to just about everybody. You know, it really just comes down to Jimmy. Like, what Jimmy are you getting? I mean, that's the bottom line. And he's got the guaranteed money now.
And extending. So,
exactly.
He's also, look, he's coming into Steph Curry's house, right? And he has got the contract. And at this point in his career, it's not like he can do this again, right? He just can't. So I actually think the chemistry part of it from a personality side will work itself out. I don't worry about that too much at all.
I don't know Jimmy. I tend to think so. I just don't know him. You know what I'm saying? It takes knowing somebody to be like, but from what I know of Jimmy, it makes a lot of sense. Like I could see it actually working.
Yeah. Marcus, you got anything else on this trade? I know you got to run. You're getting ready to go catch a flight.
So, the part that's really interesting, and I love Wiggs, man. Like Andrew Wiggins is a dude, man. He is the best guy. It's been a long time since I've seen or heard a team just be kind of like heartbroken by having a trade a dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm not at the game. Slater's in Utah. They play Utah and then the Lakers. But, you know, there's reports of, you know, possible tears and heartfelt goodbye. Like people, when Wiggins came in 2019, he came to the Warriors as kind of like a disappointment, right? Was never able to carry the Timberwolves where they thought he would. And he like completely reinvented himself. He's like a great dude. He's a champion. So I either I'm old and feel sentimental about this stuff just because I'm old, or
no, you should be. You should feel
I feel sentimental too, Marcus.
Yeah.
When you think about what Wiggins went through, what this team went through on behalf of Wiggins, the journey they went through together alongside each other, supporting each other, protecting each other, not only the team protecting Wiggins, but Wiggins also looking out for the team when he came back and played well. I think that there is this like bonded path between them now beyond the championship, beyond the winning days, that it makes sense that they're sad.
Well, if you've got another second just before you go.
I'm good.
Are they done? We still got, you know, another, 18 hours or so before the trade deadline. What are we looking at to complete their moves this week?
I don't think they're done. They still have about $17 million in expiring contracts. Although, if Wiggins hurt, those two expired contracts are going to be, man, it's going to be lugubrious in the Warriors organization. It will be sad because Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II are just two absolutely beloved figures, but that's $17 million of expiring contracts. So they still have needs. Even if they've handled the one, right? It was like, all right, you got a number 2 star. They still need a stretch big. They still need another ball handler. Like they still have some needs. And if you're doing this, if you just basically added a 35-year-old to your senior, your senior citizen squad, you might as well go all in, right? You got Steph about to be 37 in a couple weeks, right? You got Draymond 35, you got Jimmy 35. I mean, you might as well be, you know what I'm saying? You might as well be the old man. This is like New Edition getting together and doing a concert, right? This is like, but if you're going to do it, you might as well lean in and get a squad, right? So
yeah,
it's going to be tough. I don't know if they can emotionally handle losing Wiggins, Loon, and GP2, but I don't think they're done. I think there's still some other things to do. I don't expect it to be Jonathan Kuminga, but I do think that they probably got another one left in them.
All right. Well, Marcus Thompson, go and read him at The Athletic. Marcus, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing your first Jimmy Butler feature.
Oh, should be great.
Big face coffee.
I can't wait. Shout out to Bernie. Okay, so thanks to Marcus for hanging out and talking about the Warrior side of this, getting Jimmy Butler. We should say the rest of the trade. S, do you have that trade sitting in front of you?
Most of it, yeah, because it's a million moving parts.
Exactly why I asked you.
There's a lot of movement here. Look, so basically the gist of this trade is that Jimmy Butler, as we know, is headed to the Golden State Warriors. What the Miami Heat receive in return is Andrew Wiggins. They also receive Dennis Schroeder, which they're trying to reroute. They receive Kyle Anderson, which they're trying to reroute. PJ Tucker is also headed to Miami because Utah is getting Dennis Schroeder. And so there's a lot of moving parts here.
This is like the playoffs in basketball where
exactly.
there's a ton of moving parts. But the big one is Wiggins. And they get this first round pick, right. And it's top 10 protected for 2025. So that's this year's draft. It is top 10 protected for next year. And then if it doesn't convey in these next 2 years, it is a 2027 unprotected pick. And that's a pretty good pick if you get the Warriors 2027 pick, Zena, because these guys, as Marcus just mentioned, they're kind of old. Now, Zena, I want to talk about the Miami side of this. They get Andrew Wiggins. Yeah. We love Khalil Ware next to Bam Adebayo. This defense is going to be pretty good.
Before we even get into that,
by the way, Kyle Anderson is staying in Miami. Just got a new update.
Okay.
Here.
All right. So there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Before we even get into that, I just want to take a moment to grasp everything that S just said. The amount of names that were thrown out, the amount of teams that were incorporated. This is a web of a deal. And you would never have guessed that Jimmy Butler would be the name at the epicenter of this tangled story of a trade. If you would have asked me last Saturday and you would have told me this exact trade and it would have been all about Luka Doncic, I would have been like, of course, teams are doing whatever they can to figure out. I applaud Jimmy Butler for sticking to his guns about what he wanted. He made some things happen, not only for himself, but about 15 other people as well. So there's that. Now let's get to Miami. Yeah, this team is going to be fun. There's a lot of athletes on it. You do replace a mid-range killer in another mid-range killer. I think Andrew Wiggins has proven his ability to get to a spot in the mid-range, to work in the high post, which Jimmy Butler does as well. Not the same size in front of you in comparison of what Jimmy Butler brought, but Andrew Wiggins still a very capable defender, especially on the wing. It's going to be fun. If anything, Miami basketball is definitely going to be fun. And then,
more than I could say for a very long time, honestly.
What it was. Exactly. Yeah. And so, from what I know about Andrew Wiggins, especially when it came to the role that he played at the Golden State Warriors, he's going to do whatever the team needs. Mm-hmm. He is a Swiss Army knife type of player. He will do whatever it is. If he can't score, he'll defend. If he can't distribute, he'll rebound. Like, it doesn't matter. And so having someone like that alongside of Tyler Hero, alongside Khalil Ware and a Bam Adebayo, this team just got some juice.
Let's talk about some of these other trades that came down before Jimmy Butler. The Wizards making some deals. They signed Jonas Valanciunas last summer to a deal that just was perfect to be traded. And what do you know? They trade him to the Sacramento Kings for Sidi Sakoko or Sissoko.
Yeah.
And 2 second-round picks. This is number one. This is a good deal for the Wizards. They pick up, a young player, try him out. Another actually, French guy, which is great.
Apparently, they're waiving Sissoko. Also.
Oh no.
There's a lot of moving parts here, man. I'm sorry. But you know what? I did have a funny stat here. If they kept Sidi Sissoko, they would have had 20% of all French players in the NBA.
Wow.
Missed opportunity. But they pick up a couple of seconds for Jonas Valanciunas, which is a guy obviously not in their future plans. But for the Kings, hey, this is a pretty good pickup. They're going to have some rebounding.
Yeah,
they got
back
some
up.
Size.
Yeah, some size. Lithuanian guy next to Domantas Sabonis. Those guys played internationally for years, so those two know each other very well. Obviously, Jonas Valanciunas and DeMar DeRozan know each other very well. They played 8 seasons with the Toronto Raptors, so a lot of friendship going around in Sacramento, between Zach LaVine and DeMar. It just seems like they're trying to get guys who have good chemistry with each other, understand each other on the floor. Sure, add some size, add JV. Kind of works.
Can they get Kyle Lowry?
Sure.
Let's just do the whole thing.
Yeah, get Danny Green to come back.
Yeah. Well, Zena, look, we talk about how they've got all these guys that are going to be able to shoot, right? Like Zach LaVine, Malik Monk. Him as a point guard has been excellent. DeMar DeRozan, they can get their shots, and they got 2 guys that could go out and get rebounds. It's kind of it's going to be an interesting, high-powered offense, I think, for both reasons.
Yes, absolutely. On the outside and the inside, you've got people that are capable of playing their positions. They don't go outside of themselves. They're definitely capable of doing that. But what's exciting, I think, if anything, last time we talked about this Kings team, we were worried about what? Defense.
Yeah.
And now, let's be real. The Matador defense that's on the outside has not been solved for. But what have you found? A second line that's pretty darn solid in Jonas Valanciunas and Domantas Sabonis. I think the Jonas might help elevate Domantas.
It's the concept of it's good to be big in the NBA.
Yeah,
correct. If you got the 2 of them out there, if you got the 2 of them out there, of course you may not stop everything, but you're definitely going to defer some folks, right?
Yeah,
people are going to think twice before they go into the paint when you got both of those bodies down there. So I think that helps them a little bit on the defensive end. But yeah, offensively, man, it's going to be a highlight show down or up in Sac.
Yeah. Old guys will tell you, rebounding is a part of defense too. So that'll help. I mean,
true.
And when you think about long rebounds, Domantas Sabonis is actually one of the best rebounders in the league. And Jonas Valanciunas is an offensive rebounder. Excellent. Yeah. And think about those kick out threes they're going to get on offensive rebounds from both those guys. I think, second chance points for them is going to be a huge key if they're going to make the play-in, which it seems like that's what they're gunning for. We also got to trade.
Spoken like a true coach, Dave.
Yeah, there you go.
Like a true coach.
We got to trade first thing this morning. And, this one's a little bit bittersweet because Chris Middleton is no longer with the Milwaukee Bucks. He got sent to the Washington Wizards for Kyle Kuzma. In what you can only really call, look, talent-wise, this is not an upgrade for the Bucks. I mean, Middleton, obviously, he's got his health problems. But they are going to save some money. The Bucks are saving a little bit of money, and you can envision a world in which Kuzma maybe gives them a little bit more this year just because he's healthy.
So they gave up a pick swap in 2028, and they gave up AJ Johnson, who they just drafted. So it's basically 2 first-round picks plus Chris Middleton, just to be able to get off of Middleton's contract and take on Kuzma instead. They do shed salary, like you said, which is cool. That's fine. But man, is it really a heartbreaking story that this is the way Chris Middleton's career and tenure in Milwaukee ends? Because this guy has been there from the start. Him and Giannis together, developing both guys. Middleton was a guy who was in the G League and then worked his way into the squad and became a guy who was dominating against the Hawks in the conference finals for them to punch their way to the finals. And so you think about all these stories of how he got to the level that he is. Really unfortunate, man. Really unfortunate that the way it goes is he's being demoted to the Washington Wizards. It's tough.
Damn,
very
the
tough.
CBA. It is ruining. It is ruining the legendary stories of some of these players by forcing them off of rosters because of hard caps. And you know what's interesting? Y'all know I work with the WNBA podcast as well, our women's basketball podcast. all of these crazy moves that are happening in the women's basketball is because the CBA is coming.
Right.
People are just going anywhere to get 1 year done before the CBA comes, and then they can figure out their contracts. I mean, overall, the money aspect, the business aspect, the CBA is what is causing all of these kind of mind shifting type of moves to happen. And it is really sad that Chris Middleton is, and his tenure in Milwaukee is now a casualty of this
situation. Can I just say one more thing about the Kuzma thing? Because it was reported that Giannis was signed off on Kuzma sort of being here, which okay. Let's say that was the case. Inevitably, Middleton and him were really close. I really do think that this is the beginning of the end for the Bucks, because ultimately they tried. I mean, AJ Griffin was a guy Giannis signed off on. Okay. AJ Griffin out the door. Doc Rivers in. Okay. Damian Lillard, obviously that trade doesn't go down without Giannis' say so. Now Damian Lillard is here. They've been here for 2 years. Nothing has happened so far. Injuries have forced them to lose first round outs. Now they're making moves to trade the core guys that they have been a part of this thing for a very long time, moving Middleton. Okay. The faces are now changing around Giannis. And you start to think about like, how much longer can this happen for a guy who's like a perennial MVP candidate basically every year he's healthy? So
we heard him the other night.
And we heard him the other night say, man, look at all these moves. And so I don't know. I do think this is a domino effect. And like, how many more big bets are they going to lose, basically? Right.
I just feel like he's the opposite of Steph. Like there's no moves around Steph until this one. Right. But also it's like, how much longer can this stay? Yeah. And then here's Giannis, where all the moves continue to happen. How much longer can he stay? There are a lot of stars right now across the league in which you're asking these types of questions of like, how much longer can this go on? In which moves or no moves, there's just no progress being made and no true use of the star power that these stars can provide out on the court. It's tough.
Yeah, the Bucks just age. You know, injuries and age really it hit them really fast after that.
And when you don't supply it with first round picks, like those guys don't hit. You can't.
This is where the Denver Nuggets, you know, they've had kind of a similar problem, but they've hit on a few of these guys. They get Peyton Watson and they get Christian Brown, but the Bucks haven't managed to pull that off. But they're probably not done. They still got a couple of guys that they can move on the roster. So if you're listening, and you want to hang out with us on YouTube, we will be live all morning, all day for the trade deadline. Me, Zena, S. We're going to have Andrew Schlecht, Alex Spears. The whole crew is going to be there. We're going to have all of our friends popping in, Sam Amick. So we'll have breaking news all day long on the stream. We'll put out a pod as well and kind of recap the day. But come and hang out with us. You know, we'll be taking questions and talking about a bunch of different teams, even teams that aren't going to be active on the deadline. So definitely come and do that. You can find a link in the show description of this show if you're listening to the audio for the stream over on YouTube tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, guess what? You already know where to watch it. So please come and hang out with us. That's going to do it, guys. We'll be hanging out for the stream all day tomorrow. This has been our emergency podcast. Thanks to Marcus Thompson for hanging out. For S. Baraheni and Zena Keita, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for hanging out with us for another emergency podcast.